Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this call with me.
My pleasure. Maybe you could all introduce yourselves, because I can't see you all. So,
So I'm Caroline. If describing visually, I have a long blonde hair with glasses, blue eyes. Yeah.
wonderful. And where do you live?
Uh, right now I'm based in Bath in UK.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? Where are you from?
I'm living in Colorado. I've lived here for 20 years.
Okay.
And I've been climbing since I guess I was 16. Always looking for a chance to be near the mountains. So Colorado is a nice place, really beautiful rock climbing and ice climbing and good skiing and fun hiking and mountain biking and kayaking, and we got it all here in Colorado. It's kind of a outdoorsy setting for outdoors kind of people. Weather is beautiful, always 300 days of sunshine.
Oh, that's nice. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the opposite of the UK in terms of weather.
Yeah.
Are you deaf and blind, or just tell me about
Yeah.
about that piece?
Yeah. So I have Usher syndrome.
Usher syndrome, right? I work for an organization called No Barriers, and we have several folks with Usher syndrome. Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah. So I have type 2A. So that means I was born hard of hearing, and then started to become more clumsy at the age of 19, and that's when I got diagnosed with Usher. So I have tunnel vision.
And your vision, can you with Usher syndrome, you can still see, right? You're visually impaired, but you still have some vision, or?
So I'm registered blind. In UK, you can either be partly sighted or blind. So I'm registered blind, but I can still see really well with my central sight at this stage.
Right.
The tunnel vision is going narrower, but I don't know how fast or if I'll lose it at some point completely. Yeah.
So much uncertainty, I know. Yeah. And then what's your PhD in? What are you getting your PhD in?
So I'm based in computer science department, and my research is looking at how to translate visual photos into tactile pictures to access it through touch. So a little bit like Braille, but using symbolic pictures. Yeah.
All right, cool.
What about you? What is your sight? Were you always blind, or
I went blind when I was excuse me. I went blind when I was 14, and I'm 55 now, so I've been blind most of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm totally blind, completely, 100% blind.
Yeah.
And I've had a really great life, though. I have 2 nice kids, and I live a good life. You know, I'm writing books and making documentary films, and climbing mountains and kayaking rivers, and so I'll head to Alaska to do an ice climbing project in Valdez, and maybe late February, and then I'll head to the Bugaboos in Canada to climb a rock face in June, and then in July I might head to Pakistan and climb a peak with a friend of mine. So actively climbing still, as long as I can, as long as I have cartilage in my knees, which I don't know how long that'll last. Well, tell me about your project.
So I came back. I just came back from Everest Base Camp last May, and I loved the experience. And I always had a dream, summiting Everest, but it always felt like a fantasy, too expensive, too dangerous. But then I met some people on their way to on their way to summit, and I started whispering to myself, oh, what if it could be possible? So I came back from Nepal and started writing emails to different brands, and some of them replied, and I was like, oh wow, something could happen. So from then on, I decided to just go for it. So
Nice. Are you scheduled to go this spring?
sorry?
Are you scheduled to go to Everest this spring?
No. So since I came back, I met some people who went to a summit before, and showed them my idea of a timeline, and it looks like it could be in 3 years. Like I need to train, like get my experience with high altitude and climbing, and yeah.
Nice.
So I really wanna. I'd love to summit Everest and maybe tell my story, bring awareness about Usher syndrome, like I often get told, oh, you don't look blind, you're fine, why do you need a guide dog? But, sharing my journey, I hope maybe bring that better understanding, better awareness. What made you want to climb Everest?
Well, I mean, I love the mountains. I got into climbing when I was 16, and I just love the experience of it. I love the tactile nature of feeling the rock and the ice, and I love the environment of the sun on my face, and the wind and the elements, and I love the movement. I love moving up a rock face or an ice face, trying to figure out how you're going to get from one point to the next.
Yeah.
I love the team. I love being around good friends where you have such a deep relationship, and you put your life in each other's hands.
Yeah.
That you don't really, it's hard to find that in life off the mountain. And so for me, climbing Everest, for instance, was really important to have a good, strong team around me. I could be the strongest blind guy in the world, and I'm still not going to get to the summit unless I have a very strong team supporting me.
Yeah, so my other dream is, my other mission for Everest is to make sure I include Sherpas and make their voices heard as well, like make them part of the project. A lot of the documentaries, we forget about the name, and we just call them Sherpas, but I know how important, the role is, and you wouldn't be able to climb it without them. So I want to make sure that the film highlights their role as well.
The Sherpas do the hardest work on the mountain, for sure.
Then also maybe it's a bit ambitious, but maybe also find another DeafBlind Nepali person like me, who also has a dream of summiting Everest, and go together as well. But I don't know how possible that will be.
That would be tricky. I mean, that's a beautiful idea, but practically that's going to be a hard one because Nepal is a very poor country. And if somebody's deafblind, they're probably living in great poverty. And so you would have to train them for 2 years and you'd have to outfit them completely with all their gear.
Yeah.
And so it'd be a lot of money and a lot of time and extra effort. And it's possible if that's your main goal.
Yeah.
But it'd be difficult for sure.
Yeah. I was curious how was your experience at Everest? How did you train it? So about a month ago I spoke to a deaf couple who summited Everest last May. So I got to hear from deaf perspective. So now I'm curious from blind perspective.
Was that the guy that summited with his wife? They're both deaf,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shania and Scott. Is that how I say
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I mean, I don't know. It was a big effort. I mean, first you talked about financing, and yeah, it is an expensive mountain. So we went to this organization in the U.S. called the National Federation of the Blind.
Okay.
And at the time, they thought that was a really cool project to get behind.
Yeah.
Because it was, getting a blind person, the first blind person to the top of Everest, they said, was sort of like maybe the world getting the first person to the moon. They thought it was really good for the image of blindness.
Yeah.
And so I was very lucky. We just right time, right place. They supported our Everest climb for a lot of money. They paid for the entire expedition.
Okay.
And they even paid for another expedition because I wanted to go do a practice climb before Everest. So we went to a peak called Ama Dablam.
Okay.
We didn't summit that mountain. But we learned a lot, and we learned a lot as a team.
Okay.
And so that was really important, even though we didn't summit.
Yeah.
Crossing through all those adversities that the mountain presented us with actually made us a team. So one would suggest that when you form your team, you train together.
Yeah.
You train together before Everest.
Yeah.
You don't want to be just meeting the people on Everest.
Yeah.
Because you have to learn to work together beforehand.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
that
that's
makes
obvious,
sense.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm trying
So I had a really strong team, and I went all around the world climbing, and felt pretty good at 30. I was 33 when I climbed Everest, so I was a young guy.
Yeah.
And it took about 3 months, 2.5 months, 3 months,
Okay.
and it was just a huge adventure. But for sure, I mean, I had a good, strong team. I had 12 friends and 8 Sherpas.
Sorry?
So we had a big team, 21 in all.
Wow, yeah, that's a
Well,
bigger
Everest,
than
you
I
have a
thought.
lot of on Everest, you have a lot of attrition.
Yeah.
So people can get sick. So if I had 12 friends, I mean, maybe in the past the success rate is better, but back then, half your team could get sick and turn back. So you have to have the idea was to have a bigger team, but you don't have to have a team that big, of course. But I would definitely keep in mind that people can get sick. So if you're just relying on, 1 or 2 people to kind of support you, they could easily get sick, and then you're done.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And nowadays the Sherpas are much better guides.
Yeah.
They speak better English, and so your Sherpas can actually become your guides as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so your 12 Western friends, who were they? Are they just your friends or?
Just friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had no guides or anything. We just had friends.
Yeah.
And so one was an astrophysicist. One was he was a geophysicist.
Okay.
We had a couple doctors. We had a physician assistant. We had a ski instructor. We had an architect.
Okay.
So yeah, we're just good, strong climbers.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I had such a strong team, really strong people helping me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, we're all good friends today. Still, we still hang out and see. I just saw one of them yesterday. We were hanging out in my house. So yeah, that team is important.
And the funding covered for all of your friends, or was it? Did they have to pay for themselves, or?
No, the National Federation of the Blind paid for the entire expedition,
Oh,
all our permits and all our travel costs.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And that's really helpful because you might find really good people, but they can't afford to go. So you're going to have to raise some money if you want to have a good team around you.
Yeah.
Because some people may need some help to get there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good, strong climbers in the UK. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I bet you some people might be excited about this project. It's like, wow, what a first. What an amazing gift to the world. So you might find that people are really excited to join your trip. And you have to pick them carefully because, maybe this is crass to say, but the experience is about you and your story. And so you got to find people that are willing to support that story and that effort and not, have the distractions, I guess.
Yeah.
Any other questions for me?
Erik, I'd like to ask some really practical questions about, you talked about your team, your mountain team, but what about the rest of your team? Do you at that point, did you have another team around you that were the ones on the ground that are helping with finding that finance and, sort of all of that logistic stuff? Was there, or was that just
No, my team on Everest, I found a guy named Pasquale. Pasquale's a little bit older now. He's probably 65. But in the time when I climbed it, he might be closing on 70. But anyway, at the time he was about 50, and he had done expeditions in the Himalayas. So he helped me pick my team, and he helped with all the logistics and wrote up the budget. And it was Pasquale and I who went to the National Federation of the Blind and met the president there, and sat at his desk, and he said, "Yeah, I want to support this," and basically that was 50,000 blind people doing car washes and bake sales that enabled us to get to the summit. So it was really powerful. But yeah, we did all our own logistics. We did have a sponsor. A corporate sponsor, and that was, believe it or not, Allegra allergy medication.
Oh, wow.
And so they supported our film. We made a beautiful film that won tons and tons of film festivals around the world.
I've seen it.
Called Farther Than the Eye Can See. And you can find that probably online. But they sponsored the film, which was another expensive endeavor. And they had a PR firm called Conan Wolf out of New York City that were supporting all the PR efforts. So yeah, there was a team behind the scenes for sure. The National Federation of the Blind sent a representative to base camp that was doing kind of back then, what you'd call social media back then, sending updates back to the world and so forth through our satellite phone. So yeah, we did kind of have a team, but everything's a compromise, because Allegra allergy medication, when I went on TV shows, I'd have to say, my greatest challenge isn't blindness. It's actually my seasonal allergies. I felt like kind of an idiot when I did that, but hey, you got to make those choices, right?
Yeah, that's brilliant. And what about were there specific training things you did?
Yeah, so I set up ladders in my backyard. I put them up on cinder blocks, and I would walk back and forth across the ladders. So yeah, and I'd put my crampons on and walk back and forth across the ladders. Yeah.
I mean,
really important, because you're going to cross, if you're going to go from the Nepal side, you're going to cross a lot of ladders.
Yeah.
Are you going from Tibet or Nepal?
I think from Nepal, but but I am a bit worried about like banning disabled climbers from Nepal.
Oh, Everest banning disabled climbers, right? Yeah. But I know a blind guy who summited, I believe, last year.
Okay.
My friend Lonnie Bedwell. So I don't think they're enforcing that law.
Okay.
I think they might have actually reversed that law. I can't remember now.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, so both sides have validity. The Nepal side, I mean, is the historic side that Edmund Hillary climbed in Tenzing Norgay. But you have to cross through the icefall, and some people don't want to cross through the Khumbu icefall because it's risky. It's the most risky part of the mountain. There are big seracs, and things are moving and shifting and collapsing. It's a scary section of the mountain.
Yeah.
And it took everything I had to get through the Khumbu icefall. You cross through it, not just once, but up and down 10 times to set up your camps. So that's why some people go over to the Tibet side.
Okay.
And there's no Khumbu icefall. You drive to base camp.
Yeah.
And then you hike for 3 or 4 days to advanced base camp. And that's really where the true climb begins. So the true climb is actually beginning at, 22,000 feet, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. And also, in terms of sort of were there any different preparations that you felt that you and your team together had to do because of the blindness, or do you feel was there what were those few things that were extra?
It's back to training together. Back to the point of training together. I had my friends locally living in Colorado here, so every weekend we'd go in the winter and climb 14,000 foot peaks. Those are the highest peaks here in Colorado. And, we'd be wading through chest deep, waist deep snow. Probably not a chance in hell that we're going to actually summit those mountains in the winter. But we'd be out for 10 or 12 hours, and we'd say, okay, I'm not going to sit down. We're going to take all our breaks standing up, and we're going to work together. And my friends will learn how to guide me, because efficiency at high altitude is really important. You got to figure out how to communicate, and especially for you, Carolina, how your guides are going to communicate best with you. They can't be talking all the time.
Yeah.
They'll get exhausted.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out how you're going to best efficiently communicate and how they can support you while taking care of themselves. Yeah. So that takes a lot of time to figure out those systems.
Yeah. Do you have
any... And I can't stress enough how important that is.
Yeah.
I know a guy from Australia. He was a blind guy. He was plenty strong. And he didn't have a good team around him. He just met Sherpas on the mountain. And he fell in a crevasse in the Khumbu icefall. And he got hurt, and that was the end of his trip. It ended before he started almost, because he didn't think about the team.
Yeah. So do you have any of your own thing that you came up, or any of the tips that you could share as a blind person, for example? So at the Everest Base Camp, no one told me how to trek on uneven terrain, so I simply just stuck my blind cane and used it as a two-in-one tool, for trekking and for navigating the floor. So I don't know how do you trek on?
So when I was a kid, I used to use a cane, a long white cane, like that a blind person uses. I think you were just mentioning that.
Yeah.
And that didn't work very well at all, because you can't lean on those. So I started using trekking poles.
Yeah.
And I get them specially made, these really sturdy trekking poles.
Okay.
They actually go up to above my eyes. They're really tall. I can extend them really long way.
Oh, okay.
So that, especially on the descent, you might remember or be thinking about when you're descending very steep terrain, you have to be able to feel down below you the next step down. So you need those trekking poles really long.
Okay.
So I had 3-piece poles that I could extend really long and then condense them and make them really short for the uphills.
Okay.
So I used 2 trekking poles, or a trekking pole and an ice axe, when the terrain was really steep.
Okay.
And a friend of mine walks in front of me and they jingle a bell. So they don't have to talk the whole time. It's a bear bell.
Okay.
All the bears in Alaska, people use it to alert the bears that they're coming. So my friends will jingle the bell, or put it on the end of their trekking pole and shake it while they're walking so that I can hear them moving in front of me. I don't know how you'll be able to do that, if you'll be able to hear a bell, or you'll have to figure out your own system, of course.
So I have a guide dog, and my guide dog trainer at first told me to use the bell and taking to the park, but it's not useful. I can't hear the bell, so I need to figure out a different system.
So you might want to have something physically connecting you. I've heard of people that have backpacks and they have dowels coming out of their backpack, so that you have some tactile thing to follow. But you'll have to figure out that system, because you're not obviously going to be able to bring your guide dog up the mountain. They might take the dog back. The school might reverse your contract.
I like the idea he could be the first to climb, like Bosley is the first guide dog to summit Everest. That would be amazing.
No, that's the story.
That is the story, isn't it? That would be crazy.
So can you tell me more again about the ladder? So how did you train? By feeling it? Like how you step on it?
You have to learn how to lock your crampon points over the ladder rungs and lock it in a certain way. And the problem is that our construction ladders are different. They're spaced differently than Nepali construction ladders. So, but anyway, you're going to want to get some ladders and lay them out on cinder blocks and put your crampons on and learn how to walk across those. On Everest, you actually have ropes too. So you can kind of lean back on these ropes that are connected to the ice in front of you. So you actually, in a way, by leaning back holding these 2 ropes and leaning back, it gives you a little more balance than just walking outright without ropes. And by the end of the expedition, crossing the ladders was actually the way I rested, because, believe it or not, it was the most consistent part of the icefall. The Khumbu icefall nearly killed me. I was so exhausted the first time I got to above the icefall. It took me 13 hours. And I was crushed. I felt like I was going to pass out. And I was the most fit I've ever been in my entire life. So those are hard days through the Khumbu icefall. But the good news is you don't have to go through it the first time. You can go up and just get a taste of it and come back down. But eventually you gotta cross through the whole Khumbu icefall in one day, because you cannot camp in the middle of the Khumbu icefall. It's too dangerous. I mean, it's only about 2,500 feet. But the terrain is so jumbly. It's just really difficult terrain. Once you get above the Khumbu icefall, though, you're just walking up snowfields again, so that's good. Well, cool. I'm actually heading to the rock gym myself this morning, so I'm going for my training. But I'm happy to speak to you anytime throughout this process, because maybe, this conversation spurs other questions or ideas. And I'm happy to set up another call anytime, another Zoom, anytime you'd like. I'm happy to be a resource for you along the way, because I know you can't hit me with every question under the sun this morning, but, along the way, you'll probably have more questions, right?
Yeah, thank you so much. That would be really nice, yeah, to stay in touch and have someone guide me when I need it through this process.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really, really
I
cool.
love that. And really, I'm not kidding. Honestly, please take me up on that. I will be happy to Zoom with you anytime
Thank you.
to talk more and more. I'm happy to do it, like, as much as helpful.
Okay, that would be amazing. Thank you.
All right.
And
Cool, guys. Thanks. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
All
much.
right.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Best of luck.
Bye.
Bye.